What if I told you that right now, in this very moment, one of heaven's most powerful intercessors might be standing in your room trying to get your attention? In the next few minutes, you're going to learn how to recognize the unmistakable signs that Padre Pio, the stigmatized saint who bore the wounds of Christ, is reaching across eternity to touch your life in ways that'll blow your mind. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly what to look for and why it matters more than you think. There's something happening in homes across America, in hospital rooms, in cars stuck in traffic, in quiet chapels, and even in noisy grocery stores that most people completely miss. It's subtle, it's supernatural, and it's been documented thousands of times by everyday folks who weren't even looking for it. We're talking about encounters with the divine that don't show up on your phone's camera, but leave an impression on your soul that's more real than anything you can photograph. And at the center of these experiences is a friar from southern Italy who died decades ago, but somehow seems more active now than when he walked this earth. Let me break this down for you in a way that makes sense. When we talk about saints, especially ones as powerful as Padre Pio, we're not talking about dead people who are just chilling in heaven doing nothing. We're talking about warriors of faith who have crossed the finish line and are now working overtime to help those of us still running the race. Think of them as spiritual special forces, deployed by God Himself to specific situations where their unique gifts and experiences can make a difference. And Padre Pio? Man, he's got a reputation that precedes him. This is the guy who could read souls, who appeared in 2 places at once, who fought literal battles with demons in his cell at night. So when he shows up, things happen. Now, here's where it gets interesting and where most people's lives intersect with this mystery without them even realizing it. People from every walk of life, every denomination, heck, even some who barely believe in anything, have reported experiencing something they can't explain away. It usually starts with a scent. Not just any scent, but something so pure, so beautiful, so completely out of place that it stops them in their tracks. We're talking about the smell of fresh-cut roses blooming in the middle of February in a room with no flowers. The fragrance of lilies so intense it feels like you're standing in a garden, except you're in a hospital room or a prison cell or your car on the interstate. Some folks describe it as violets, others as a mixture of flowers they can't quite name, but everyone agrees on one thing. It's unlike anything they've ever encountered naturally. This phenomenon isn't new, and it's not some modern invention of overly emotional believers. Historical records going back to when Padre Pio was still alive document this exact same thing happening around him constantly. His fellow friars would smell it, visitors to the monastery would smell it, people who wrote to him for prayer would smell it in their homes thousands of miles away. After his death in 1968, instead of stopping, these incidents actually increased. It's like he got promoted to a bigger role and now has even more freedom to move around helping people who call on his intercession. But let's get real for a second, because I know some of you are thinking this sounds too out there, too mystical, too Catholic perhaps for your comfort zone. Here's the thing. God speaks in different languages to different people. For some, it's through scripture that jumps off the page at exactly the right moment. For others, it's through a song on the radio or a word from a stranger. And for many, especially connected to Padre Pio's spirituality, God speaks through these sensory experiences that bypass our rational defenses and go straight to the heart. It's not about being weird or spooky. It's about a loving father using every tool at his disposal to remind his children that they're not alone, that heaven is real, that prayer works, and that somebody up there is listening and responding. The perfume is just one piece of the puzzle, though. People who've had these encounters with Padre Pio's presence report other things that happen simultaneously or shortly after. There's usually this overwhelming sense of peace that washes over them, the kind of peace that doesn't make logical sense given their circumstances. Maybe they're facing a terminal diagnosis. Maybe they just lost someone they love. Maybe they're drowning in financial problems or relationship chaos. The situation hasn't changed. The problem is still there, but suddenly there's this unexplainable calm, this deep knowing that somehow, some way, everything is going to be okay. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's intercession working in real time. Some people experience what they describe as a warmth, like someone placed a comforting hand on their shoulder or wrapped them in an invisible blanket. Others report seeing a flash of light or feeling a presence in the room that's not threatening but deeply reassuring. A few have even had dreams or visions where Padre Pio appeared to them directly, sometimes speaking, sometimes just standing there with that penetrating gaze he was famous for, the one that could see straight into your soul and love you anyway. These aren't hallucinations. These aren't the products of overactive imaginations. These are documented spiritual experiences that have patterns, that have consistency, that have witnesses. Here's what makes this particularly powerful. These encounters almost always happen during moments of desperate need. It's rarely when everything is going great and you're just chilling on vacation. It's when you're at the end of your rope, when you've prayed every prayer you know, when you feel forgotten by God and abandoned by the world. That's when the perfume shows up. That's when the peace floods in. That's when you realize you're not forgotten at all, that your prayers didn't disappear into a void, that there's a saint in heaven who heard you and responded by showing up in the only way he can from where he is. Now, how do you know it's really him and not just your mind playing tricks? Great question. There are some key markers that distinguish genuine spiritual encounters from wishful thinking or even from potentially deceptive spiritual influences. First, there's the fruit it produces in your life. Does this experience draw you closer to God or away from Him? Does it increase your faith or create confusion? Does it lead to humility and gratitude or pride and attention-seeking? Padre Pio's interventions always point people back to Jesus Christ, to the sacraments, to prayer, to living a life of virtue. If an experience does anything else, it's not from him. Second, there's the testimony of others. You're not the first person this has happened to, and you won't be the last. When your experience lines up with the documented experiences of countless others across decades and continents, that's not coincidence, that's confirmation. Third, there's the timing. God's timing is perfect, and when Padre Pio shows up, it's exactly when you need him most, sometimes even before you realize you need him. People have reported smelling the perfume right before receiving terrible news, as if he was there preparing them for what was coming. Others have experienced it during moments of temptation, as a reminder of heaven's reality and a supernatural boost to choose the right path. The timing is never random. It's always strategic, always purposeful, always an act of divine love, mediated through a saint who knows what it's like to suffer and who uses his authority in heaven to help those still suffering on earth. Let me tell you something that might challenge you a bit. In our modern American Christianity, we've kind of lost touch with the communion of saints, this ancient and biblical truth that we're connected to all believers living and dead in one massive family. We've been taught to go directly to God, which is absolutely right and good, but we've forgotten that God often works through intermediaries, through people he's raised up as examples and equipped as helpers. When you ask Padre Pio to pray for you, you're not praying to him instead of God. You're asking someone who's already standing in God's presence, someone who has God's ear to join his prayers with yours. It's like asking your pastor or your grandmother to pray for you, except this person is infinitely more powerful in prayer because they're no longer hindered by the limitations of a fallen body and a fallen world. So, what do you do if you want to experience this for yourself? It's not about conjuring up feelings or manufacturing mystical experiences. It's about opening your heart in genuine faith and asking. Talk to Padre Pio like you'd talk to a trusted friend. Tell him what you need, what you're struggling with, what seems impossible in your life right now. Ask him to intercede for you, to bring your needs before the throne of God with the authority he's earned through a lifetime of holiness and suffering. And then pay attention, not in a desperate, straining way, but in a relaxed, expectant way. Be alert to your senses, to those moments when something seems just slightly off in the best possible way. Be open to peace that makes no earthly sense. Be ready to recognize a gift when it's offered. The beautiful thing about Padre Pio's ongoing ministry is that it's not exclusive. It's not just for Catholics or Italians or mystics. It's for anyone who approaches with genuine faith and genuine need. There are Protestants who've experienced this. There are people who weren't even believers who encountered the perfume and it became the beginning of their journey to faith. Heaven doesn't discriminate, and neither does this saint who spent his entire earthly life serving anyone who came to him regardless of their background or status. He was a spiritual father to millions then, and he's a spiritual father to millions now. The only difference, now he can be in multiple places at once without it being a miracle. That's just how heaven works. If this message is resonating with you, if you're feeling something stirring in your spirit right now, I want to invite you to join our Living Hope community. Hit that subscribe button because we dive deep into these kinds of spiritual realities that most channels won't touch. We're here to help you recognize God's movement in your life through all its various forms, including the supernatural ones that our sanitized modern faith often ignores. Drop a comment below sharing your own experiences or questions about Padre Pio's intercession. And most importantly, don't let this moment pass without acting on it. Right now, wherever you are, just pause and ask. Ask Padre Pio to pray for you, to help you with whatever you're carrying today. Ask with expectation, with faith, with openness. And then watch what happens. Because heaven is real, the saints are active, and Padre Pio is still working miracles for those who believe.